12.12 is the SMG show. A lot of people have been running SMGs across the board recently, and it's really good to see. A lot of SMGs like the HK UMP for the first time are actually seeing a lot of use within the meta. However, there's another SMG, the HK MP7, which I believe to be one of the most widely misunderstood guns in the game. A lot of people make the wrong decisions when it comes down to the ammo, so we're going to be looking at the mods and also some interesting things about the gun that you might have not considered. Let's take a look at the MP7 in action. Alright, so when can you purchase the MP7? You can actually get your hands on this bad boy at level 15 from the flea, but most obviously you can also purchase it from the trader yourself for about $606 at Peacekeeper level 3. Now this works out to be about 76,000 rubles. Now something very interesting, however, is that you can just simply go over to the flea and get them for really cheap. For some weird reasons, people will sometimes sell them for about 35,000 rubles, all the way up to about 40,000 rubles, and quite consistently as well. This is an insanely good price for an SMG of this caliber. When you hit max Peacekeeper, you can also trade for the A2 variant of the MP7 for 1 GPX phone and 1 power bank. Now, the biggest problem with this trade is that GPX phones are usually about 100k on the flea, worth an absolute freaking fortune, which is unfortunate to say the least. So the best thing that you could do when doing this is also cop this bad boy off the flea. Now, the tan variant or the A2 variant is generally a little bit more on the flea market, but a lot of the time will just only be slightly more. You can see I can cop one for about 40k. Now, the interesting thing about the A1 versus the A2 variant is there are a few differences. The first one is going to be the A1 comes in with a built-in grip. The cool thing about the A1 is that generally you don't need to do as much because of this built-in grip. You can simply just throw on a scope and you're good to go. This is the better, cheaper variant in my opinion. But truthfully, the A2 is actually better. You can see even though I don't even have a grip on it, it actually has an extra 2 ergo at 69. Nice. And it also has the same amount of recoil. So it basically is identical on stats, except the A2 variant is obviously in FDE. And you can also attach a grip to the bottom of it. Now, there's not much you can do to the MP7. This is the A1 variant, and what we're going to be doing is just simply throwing on a scope. Generally, I like the EOTechs on these scopes as they feel really good, but you can use something like the Monstrum if you really desire. Now, the cool thing about the MP7 is that you can change over the iron sights for a little bit of extra ergo, so we're going to be going with the Chris Defiance for a tiny bit of ergo boost. Now, the truth be told, you can't really do much else except suppress it. Now, the suppressor actually reduces the recoil, but also reduces that ergo. This is not a huge deal, but the main problem is the suppressor costs a lot of money. And so if we go to build this MP7, what we'll notice is the actual suppressor itself costs more than the entire gun. So this is a little bit of a problem. And if we remove owner type traders, sometimes we can get it cheaper on the flea, but not really so often. So we're actually going to be paying out the arse for this suppressor, and that's sometimes a bit of a big deal. Now, the A2 modding is pretty much identical. You can take off the iron sights for something else just to boost the ergo by about 2. You can also change up the scope. For sake of comparison, we're going to keep the EOTech XBS0 as that's one of my favorite scopes. And we're also going to be adding a grip. Now, for the MP7, it does have a fair bit of recoil. And I know it says 51, but that main recoil comes down to this one here, and that is horizontal recoil. The horizontal recoil on the MP7 is really the hardest part about using this gun. So generally what I would consider using is something like the SE5 Stark Express if you want to spend a little bit of money on this gun and bring down that recoil. However, a lot of people will take it one step further and use something like the Zenit RK1, which costs a lot, but generally this will give you just a tiny bit less recoil without sacrificing too much of ergonomics. But realistically, guys, you don't really need to do much to this MP7. A good recommendation is either the Zenit RK1, because it's nice and cheap, or you can go ahead if you want to save a little bit of money. You can use the Magpul AFG, which has a little bit more recoil, and something like this, even without a suppressor, is a very usable gun just as it is. So if we look at the two side by side between the A1 and the A2 here on the left hand side, we'll notice the A2 is actually better. It's going to be better in pretty much every single way, including ergonomics and also recoil, and that really just comes down to the fact that you can put a grip on the front of it. So that really just means that the MP7 A1 is going to be a better, cheaper option generally. What I would do with the A1 is that I wouldn't even run a suppressor on the front of it. I generally run it just like this, and with 20 round mags. It is also a really cool gun because it stays nice and small. So when it comes down to ammo, you can purchase multiple different types. You got 4 rounds that you can choose for the MP7. The first one, and very cheap, is Action SX, purchasable from Mechanic Level 1. Now, this is not a bad option if you've got your hands on it early on with those 20-round magazines. However, the only problem is we're looking at about 18 pen for these bad boys and 65 damage. Now, that doesn't sound super bad, but truth be told, the 18 pen isn't super good, and you're going to struggle a lot if you run Action SX. The only plus side is you can purchase as much as you want, so you don't have any buy limits, and because of its cheap price, you're not investing so much. At level 3 mechanic, you get the option to purchase Subsonic SX. Now, this round is amazing, and this is one of the most slept on rounds for the MP7 period. A lot of people don't run this round, and it really blows my mind as to why they would not choose this round over the others. Let's quickly talk about why I believe this is one of the best rounds for the MP7. The first one is it's reasonably cheap at 463 rubles. This makes it slightly more expensive than FMJ if you're purchasing it directly from the trader. However, the cool part is you can buy 400 per reset. With that being said, I'm going to buy one bullet here and I'm going to head over to Peacekeeper. And at level 3 Peacekeeper, you can buy the competitor, which is what I was talking about, FMJ. Now, FMJ works out to be $3 a bullet or 375 rubles per round. The only downside is you can only purchase 190 per reset at level 3 Peacekeeper. All right, so here we have on the left-hand side, we have FMJ, and on the right, we have Subsonic. Now, these are the two mid-tier options that are competing against each other for the MP7. Let's get a few things straight first. The first one is that FMJ actually has 40 penetration points within 50 meters of a target. So anything under 50 meters away, you have 40 pen. And that's basically a 99% chance to go through level 4 helmets if it doesn't ricochet, which is kind of useful under 50 meters. Subsonic, however, has 36 pen, but a little bit more flesh damage than FMJ at 45. Now, if we look down the bottom of Subsonic, we'll notice there's a few different modifiers here that make this round really interesting. The first one's going to be the fact that it actually increases the accuracy of the gun by 10%. That means your MOA is actually going to be tighter by 10%. This means a lot in the grand scheme of things. Next up, we have the recoil modifier. And what you'll notice is that the recoil modifier is -22, meaning that Subsonic SX actually reduces the recoil of your MP7 by 22 across the board. Not only just that, but we'll also notice that the misfire chance and the failure to feed chance is very low compared to FMJ's low and also low failure to feed chance. Now, that doesn't make a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, but there's also another thing that ties into that, and that is the fact that Subsonic SX also has a -20 durability burn, and it also has a -12 heat modifier. So that means it heats your gun up less. It also burns your gun's durability less, and tied with the fact that its misfire and failure to feed chance is also lower, it means you can spam more rounds downrange consistently without running into overheating. If we have a look at TarkovBallistics.com, and I'll link this down below, this is a really helpful website for helping me figure out things when it comes down to penetration. We're going to have a look at FMJ versus Subsonic here in the ammo section. So at the top half of the screen, I have FMJ, and at the bottom, I have Subsonic SX. Now, what's really interesting about these two, if we look at them side by side, the top one, FMJ, at 50 meters away has 37 pen, but then at 100 meters has 35. This is identical to the Subsonic because we're looking at 35 pen at around about 100 meters anyway. And the cool thing about Subsonic is that 150 meters away, because of its different energy drop-off. And the cool thing about Subsonic is if we have a look at 150 meters away, we actually have more penetration at 34.95 compared to FMJ because of that range drop-off and the way that the round works. So Subsonic is actually much better because it retains more of its penetration over distance, strangely enough. as well as the fact that it trades blows with FMJ at close range as well, because those few points of penetration barely make a difference once we start reaching the 50 to 100 meter mark, where any sort of that difference in pen and speed actually becomes negligible. So last but not least, we have APSX, which is the strongest round for 4.6mm. And this bad boy here is an incredible round. It comes in at 53 penetration, which means it'll basically cut through any armor in the game except for slicks on the first shot. And that's pretty interesting because those level 6 armors are very, very rare in the game. So you're going to have consistency across the board with anything you need to cut through. The biggest problem, however, is we've lost a lot of flesh damage getting to this round. This is a 35 damage round, which is technically 10 less than FMJ. This leaves us with a few problems, meaning that this round, a lot of the time, due to its low flesh, will also not one-tap the head and different types of helmets because of that drop-off. The other problem with APSX is the fact that it also has a very high durability burn, a medium fail to chance, a medium misfire chance with plus 10 recoil. This thing is also very hard to find, as you can only find them in raid. You can't purchase them off the flea market. Now, if we swing over towards TarkovBallistics.com and have a quick look at APSX, we'll notice that its trajectory is quite nice. Very similar to FMJ in its curve, but its energy and its ballistics profile is not very good. We'll notice that its energy drop-off is very significant. After about 175 meters, it drops very significantly. And so this means a few problems with APSX. Now, the first one is that, look here, we are already at 50 meters away. We are down towards 32 damage. So we're down here towards 50 meters away. We have now lost a considerable amount of flesh damage, down from 35 to 32. And we've also lost penetration from the high 50s to a now non-guaranteed chance to go through level 5. This means a few things. If someone's wearing a high durability level 4 helmet, they're going to eat the round to the head and actually survive the first shot, as well as the fact that there's a chance for helmets like the Alton and other level 5s to survive this on the first round. Level 4 helmets like the ULAC, although will allow the round through, will actually absorb a bunch of the damage, so they will survive the first round. So when it comes down to APSX, although it's really, really good in CQC, if you want consistency for headshots, sometimes it's going to let you down. Hey guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this MP7 breakdown and just learned something here today about mods or attachments. If there's another gun you'd like to see me do this for, let me know in the comments down below. As always, guys, we have another great Discord featured down below with full of people who play Tarkov just like you guys. So if you're looking for a community to join or chat to, or maybe find people to play with, consider jumping in the Discord, as well as a link to my Twitch, which is featured down below. If you want to come and watch me run this gun live or any gun live, or just come talk to me and chat shit while I play Tarkov. I appreciate you guys watching to the very end. If you enjoyed this type of content, consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.